Hello, everyone. Welcome to the University of Arkansas Associated Student Government Office of Financial Affairs Funding Information presentation. This video will serve as a guide for those who are seeking more information on the RSO or Registered Student Organization funding process on campus through ASG. If you are not a student at the University of Arkansas and or have no interest in receiving information about funding at the U of A, I urge you to stop this video immediately and continue browsing the web. Otherwise, welcome to all of those who are looking to receive funding. A quick disclaimer before I get started. This presentation is relevant as of the spring of 2016. The board occasionally makes changes to the standing rules. So, before submitting, I would highly encourage you to read through the standing rules and any other information provided on the ASG website for up-to-date documents. The content in this video does not supersede the guidelines and expectations outlined in the standing rules or any other ASG governing documents. If you have any questions, please feel free to email the current ASG treasurer at asgtres@uark.edu. And now we can get started. So this is going to be a quick overview of the funding process through OFA. And this is a little bit about what we're going to talk about, the purpose of both ASG and the Office of Financial Affairs, the ASG organizational structure, OFA and what we do, viewpoint neutrality, and then we're going to transition into the actual funding application tutorial. So if for some reason you already know a little bit about the rules and how OFA works and just want to learn how to fill out a budget, then you can skip to later in this video for the funding application tutorial. So first, the purpose of ASG. The Associated Student Government acts as an organized voice for all students of the University of Arkansas and represents students in the university's decision and policy-making process to provide a broad educational experience for students while promoting citizenship on campus and in the greater community. So in essence, if you have any comments, concerns, or questions about anything at the U of A, please feel free to reach out to ASG. We have a comment box on the website, or you can come up to the office and speak to one of the exec members, and we would be happy to help in whatever way we can. A little bit about the ASG organizational structure. So we have the executive branch, which is comprised of the president, VP, treasurer, secretary, the chief of staff, and their 23 cabinet members. Legislative bodies consist of the Senate, which represents undergraduate and law students, and the Graduate Student Congress, which represents the graduate students, and both of those have 50 members. Judicial consists of the justices, the chief justice, and the elections commissioner. And then we have functional areas, which is where OFA falls underneath. So OFA, the Freshman Leadership Forum, University Committee appointments, and the Associate Member Program are all functional areas within ASG. So the Office of Financial Affairs, what do we do? The purpose of OFA is to promote a diverse array of programs and events, facilitate intellectual engagement, encourage collaboration between student groups, and or foster campus community. So the composition of OFA. So ultimately, we are serving the students and the registered student organizations. There are 9 board members, 9 voting members, and we also have a support team consisting of the ASG treasurer, his or her deputy, a graduate student Congress representative that represents graduate students on the board, the advisors, and a SUI representative. And SUI stands for Student Organizational Outreach and Involvement Experience. And so all of the support members do not have voting rights. The only person that may have voting rights is the treasurer in the event that there is a tie. So the only voting members are the board over here. Okay, a little bit about viewpoint neutrality. Viewpoint neutral funding means that funding decisions cannot be based on a group's point of view. In other words, an organization cannot be denied funding because it advocates a particular opinion, no matter how deplorable or unusual. So, for instance, if the board were stacked with young Democrats, that does not mean that because the young Democrats disagree with the college Republicans' viewpoint, that they cannot receive or they cannot give them funding. So every budget is taken on a case-by-case basis, and the board members set their viewpoints aside in the funding process. Okay, so getting into the funding rules. So, what we supply funds for. Typically, the special events are for guest speakers, movie screenings, cultural events, and many more. And again, these can be found on the ASG website in the Approved Budgets tab. And then for conferences, we only pay registration fees up to $1,000 per RSO per academic year. So, getting down into the nitty gritty of the events and conferences. So, these are some of the main things that we look for in events. It must be submitted 5 weeks in advance, and that is for non-ticketed events. And we'll get into what non-ticketed and ticketed means. It must provide educational value. This is probably the most important component that the board looks at, is whether or not it has an educational value and what students are going to get out of the event. And food cannot exceed $15 a head if you're getting it through Chartwells on campus, or $12. It cannot exceed $12 a head for any third-party vendors. So moving over to the events that we cannot fund. Recruitment is limited to $100. So if your event is seen as a recruitment event only, there's no other purpose, then the funds are going to be limited to $100. Meetings not accessible to all students. They have to be accessible to all students. Non-ticketed events with over 10 non-students and consumables. So if an event is going to have more than 10 non-students, that's including any faculty or staff, then it has to be ticketed. And it has to be ticketed if there's any consumables. So consumables basically means food or any other consumable item that the attendees could take. And so if you're going to have more than 10 non-students and have consumables, it has to be ticketed. And then additionally, ticketed events with a student to non-student ratio of 2 to 1 or less. And then we also cannot fund banquets, awards, or prizes. So transitioning into the conferences, what we look for in conferences is it must be submitted 7 weeks in advance. It's up to $1,000 per RSO per academic year, and we only pay entrance fees. We do not pay travel fees to the conference or lodging fees for the conference. And then, of course, we can't fund non-educational conferences. So the standing rules can be found on the ASG website on the Financial Affairs tab. And I highly encourage you to look at those again because they may have been updated since this video was posted. And the board's job is to interpret and apply the standing rules to submitted budgets. Okay, so the funding process. So once you've gone through this video, gone through the funding application, and you have submitted your budget, it will go to first round. And the board meets at 5 p.m. on Thursdays, and typically you will receive an email from them either that night or the day after with the decision made by the board. So for first round, the board will review all the budgets. If they have any questions, they will follow up with you. In the event that it is denied, you will also receive an email that it was denied and the reason for denial. In most cases, in a lot of cases, the board does have questions about budgets, whether that be clarification or they just want more information about what the event is going to be about. Then we will reach out to the RSO with any questions that we may have, and we will discuss it at the next week, which is second round. And so second round, they either have the option to second round approve or deny. And so if it's denied, then you have the opportunity to appeal that budget and come to the board and explain your viewpoint and why you think it should be funded. And then, of course, if it is approved, then you get your money and you get to have your event and or conference. So the funding timeline. Events must be submitted 5 weeks in advance, and that's for non-ticketed events. Ticketed events, which again are more than 10 non-students, must be submitted 7 weeks in advance. And then conferences must also be submitted 7 weeks in advance of registration payment date. And so none of these timelines include any university holidays. And so I will give some examples of navigating around university holidays later in the video. So the funding rounds, you can only have one event per round, and you cannot request funds more than one period in advance. And so don't really need to go through all 4 of these rounds and the dates, but just keep those in mind when you're looking forward for the rest of the semester and what your RSO plans on hosting. Okay, so submitting your budget. You want to plan out your event, obviously, peg down your location, date, itinerary, and estimated attendees. This is one of the first things that the board members look at when they're reviewing budgets. If you don't have a location or a date and everything is tentative, then your budget will be denied. You want to fill out a budget form, and these forms can also be found on the ASG website, which I will show you here in a minute. If your event is over $1,000, then you need to schedule a pre-event consultation with the graduate assistant, the RSO graduate assistant. This semester in the spring of 2016, it's Amber Widowson, and that's her email right there. But if you're in the fall of 2016 or later, I would look at the ASG website or the funding application to see who you need to be meeting with for a pre-event consultation, and that's only if the event is over $1,000. And then you want to submit your budget to asgtres@uark.edu via dropboxit.uark.edu, and I will show you how you can do that here later in the video. So some of the essentials for success. Obviously, you want to be submitted on time. That is a very black and white rule. If the budget is late, then the board has to deny the request. Obviously, it has to contain educational value and be open and accessible to all students. The time, location, and content are set. I mentioned this before. It needs to be advertised appropriately. Newswire, RSO listservs, and campus calendar at a minimum. And our staff members will walk you through that process of how to get those posted. And then, of course, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you can always visit with the ASG treasurer or board members before the submission in the ASG office. So now we're going to transition into the funding application tutorial. And so here I have the funding application, and this is when you're actually going to itemize and give information about the event, what you plan on purchasing, the educational value of the event. So this is what the board is going to be looking at, and this is what you're ultimately going to submit. There are several tabs down here that you're going to need to utilize, and this first tab is only information. It has some of the standing rules, some components of the standing rules in here, so I urge that you read this before you continue. And make sure that you're abiding by any of the updated documents that were posted to the ASG website. So, moving on, I have 2 fake events, or I have 1 fake event and 1 fake conference that I'm going to be going through in this tutorial. So please do not show up for this event or the conference because it is completely fictional and it's not going to happen. So, I've filled out some of the information above, and so all of this information is mandatory. You have to fill out the name of your RSO, obviously your treasurer's name, all this information, the number of active members in the previous year, and then there's some additional information. So I have the mission statement for ASG right here, and so I'm just going to copy and paste so I don't waste your time. And I'm going to be applying for both a conference in this video and an event. And how we're going to do this is we're going to do the event first, and then we'll go through the conferences. But make sure to put the check marks there for what you actually plan on applying for in this specific budget. So the name of the event, we're actually going to be having an event that is centered around the Safe Ride program, which offers U of A students rides if they're ever in an uncomfortable or vulnerable situation. You can call up 575-SAFE on campus, and they will, or anywhere in Fayetteville, and they will take you to your destination so you can get there safely. And so the event is going to be named A Newcomer's Guide to Safe Ride. Okay, and the date of the program is going to be April 1st, 2016. And as you can see, this gives you the deadlines. And so, in the event that it's a 5-week, or in the event that it's a non-ticketed event, which means that you have less than 10 non-students, then you would have to meet this date. If you had more than 10 non-students, it would need to be ticketed, which means that you would need to abide by this date. And so, let's go ahead and look at the calendar because we're getting pretty close to spring break. It is February 15th, so let's go ahead and look at how that adds up on the calendar. And so the event is on April 1st. And so let's go ahead and count. So this is spring break, so you don't count this week. So the events here needs to be 5 weeks in advance. So let's go ahead and count. You don't count spring break, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the due date is actually February 19th, and that's this Friday. So I have plenty of time to submit, but that's just showing you how you should sort of time that out with any university holidays that you may have. And then, of course, if it was 7 weeks, you would keep going. Yeah, so if it was 7 weeks, we would actually be late. Okay, so going back to the budget, the event time, let's go ahead and put 5 p.m. The event location is going to be the Greek Theater. We anticipate 75 students being there. And we're going to go ahead and make this a non-ticketed event, which means no more than 10 non-students. Let's go ahead and say that we anticipate 8 non-students being there. We're not going to have any co-sponsors for this event. Description and purpose of the event and how it relates to your organization's mission. So I have that over here, this description of the Newcomer's Guide to Safe Ride. And so this cell right here, and also this one, so 50 and 55 are going to be the main components that you're going to sell the board on the educational value of your event. This is where the board gets the meat and bones of your actual event and how it relates to students and what it's going to bring to campus. How you will advertise this event and attract students. So obviously, like I said before, the RSO listserv, Newswire, and campus calendar are all mandatory, and the office staff post-approval will show you how to get those posted. But we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to post these to the ASG social media accounts, ASG member social media, and we're also going to put it on bulletin boards around campus. And so making sure that we are advertising to all students, making it known by all students is very important, so please take that into consideration when you're filling out your budget. So how will this event or program benefit students at the University of Arkansas? I have this here. Again, I'm not going to waste too much of your time. I'm just going to copy and paste this description. Again, please try to be as thorough as possible in both of these cells about the content of your event. Okay, is the primary purpose of this event recruitment of new members for your RSO? Yes or no? So like I stated earlier, if the event is seen as a recruitment event, then the funds will be limited to $100. And so in this case, we aren't trying to recruit for ASG, we're just trying to inform them about the Safe Ride program and any other Safe Ride programs around the nation and how they are progressing in their programs, and so we're going to go ahead and put no here because it's not a recruitment event. If you're bringing a guest speaker, performer, or artist, please provide a short biography. This is also an important component. If you have a guest speaker coming for the event, you're going to want to provide a bio for him. So I have a bio of Dr. Ethan Atchley, who is the Safe Ride and Student Government Coordinator from Rice. And he's going to discuss the transformations in the Safe Ride community and the advances in technology and its effects on the response times and overall effectiveness of providing safe transportation for students. And so his email is eatchley@rice.edu. And if you requested the purchase of any special equipment, please explain. We're not going to have any special equipment, so I'm just going to put no there. So by typing my name below, I understand that I am not allowed to raise money at any event sponsored by funds received through this application process. This includes student admission fees, requests for donations, selling items, etc. So please take this into consideration if you are planning on raising money at your event. You cannot receive money from OFA. So I'm just going to go ahead and type my name here. Okay. And so this is saying that, yes, I have reviewed the standing rules for timelines, processes, and allowable expenses. Completed all the necessary parts of the RSO funding application, which we're on right now. And we haven't completed the event or conference tab, so I'm going to come back to that. We're going to go ahead and skip this budget proposal page for now, and we're going to go to the event. And so this has automatically populated the location, the time, the event date, the name of the event, and so we're going to start up here with the funding period. And like I said before, it is February 15th, so that is in the third period. Again, you can only have one event per period. And so we're going to be having pizzas from Eureka. So the food item is going to be pizza. We're going to price those at $4.99, and we're going to have 20 pizzas. Okay. And then let's see what else. No delivery or gratuity charges because we're going to pick those up. Let's go ahead and say that reserving the Union Theater is going to be $200. And so as you can see, it shows your total catering, how much travel, food, venue, miscellaneous. Let's go ahead and put paper plates. We're going to put those at $20. And we'll also add some honorarium for our speaker. Let's go ahead and say $300. And let's go ahead and say his plane ticket is going to be $500. He's going to stay one night, and because he's only staying one night, he can only have 1 day of per diem. And so this is all adding up over here in this column. And so this is your total, the total cost of your event. So because this is over $1,000, we are going to have a pre-event consultation with the RSO graduate assistant. So prior to submitting this budget on dropboxit.ur.edu, you're going to need to have a pre-event consultation because it's over $1,000 with the RSO graduate assistant. So again, please look at some current documents, and it's most likely in this application information, and it says right here, pre-event consultation planning can be sent to the RSO graduate assistant Amber or rso@ur.edu. Okay. So we are done with this portion, and we will transition into the conference application process. And so, where's the conference? Okay, so the purpose of the conference, and I have that purpose here, the conference is going to be the Safe Ride Programs United Conference. And that is in College Station, Texas. So we'll put that information later. And the registration link for that conference is right here, if I could get it highlighted. And so I'm going to provide this so that the board members can view the conference, the educational value, things of that nature. So again, nothing on this because that's just all the event stuff. So we're going to go to the conference tab. And so the name of the conference is going to be the Safe Ride United Conference, Safe Ride Programs United Conference. So obviously you'll need to fill out all this information for whatever conference you plan on going to. The date of the conference is going to be May 20th. Again, completely fictional, so please do not show up to the Safe Ride Programs United Conference in College Station. We're going to go ahead and say that the due date for the conference is May 2nd. Okay. The number of members attending, we'll go ahead and say 3, and it's going to be $200 a person. So it comes out to be $600. Again, you cannot exceed $1,000 per RSO per academic year. And so remember that the due date for conferences is 7 weeks prior to the registration due date. And we said that's May 2nd. So let's go ahead and go to the calendar and go to May 2nd to see how that lines up with spring break. So here's May 2nd. This is when the due date is for the registration. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, you cannot count spring break, so we're going to skip over spring break, 6, and then 7. So the 7th is when it would be due. And it's the 15th, so we have plenty of time. Okay, so then we are going to go back to the funding application tab. We have completed both the event and the conference tabs, so we're going to put yes. We submitted copies of the conference registration form or a link. We provided a link, so we're going to go ahead and put yes to that. And I haven't met with Amber yet, but we're going to go ahead and assume that you are going to schedule a meeting with Amber and meet with her prior to submitting the budget. And so this entire event, or the RSO funding application page, is complete. Okay, this is a checklist. This is just to make sure that you've gone over everything. So please fill this portion out because the board looks at it. So read over the standing rules document and the application information tab. Yes. If requesting over $1,000, complete a pre-event consultation. Yes. We did complete the RSO funding application tab. We completed the event and conference tab. We included the documentation for the conference, and we are about to submit the materials to Dropbox. And no, we are not requesting money for administrative fees. So the ASG president currently, Tanner Bone, his email is asgprez@uark.edu, and then treasurer. So you're going to want to fill this information out so that we can be contacting the correct people with any follow-up questions or concerns we have with the budget. So after all of this is done, you're going to want to save the document. Go ahead and save this, save as, and we're going to go and put ASG funding proposal. Doesn't really matter what the name is, just go ahead and save it. And then we're going to navigate over to the ASG website. And so I mentioned earlier the Dropbox and how you submit that. Really quickly, I'm going to show you the documents that you can find on the ASG website. And so any minutes that we have, agendas, approved budgets are all over here. The ASG funding guide is a document that you can look at that sort of walks you through the process that I just did, just in a paper format. The ASG funding application is what we just filled out. The OFA standing rules, a very important document that you should look over to make sure that no rules have changed. and then the funding information presentation, which we also went over earlier. Now, if you press this submit a budget, it will take you directly to the Dropbox it.uark.edu page. And so I'm already logged in, but you may be prompted to log in with your university login, so your email and password. So once you're in, you're going to press transfer files, subject ASG proposal, and then I want to send a copy to myself just in case, and then we're going to start typing, and we have to set the recipient to ASGTRES at uark.edu. This is very important because if you don't set it to, if you don't select ASG Trez, then it's not going to go through, and the ASG treasurer will not receive your application, and then you don't receive funding, and that's a sad day. And so here is my proposal. Not necessary, but hey. And then all you have to do is upload file. Browse. I saved it on my desktop, and there it is. Review and send. Send. There we go. So it expires 2/25, and I should receive an email here pretty soon with the budget. And that concludes the funding information presentation. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the ASG treasurer at asgtres@uark.edu. Thanks, guys.